Have you ever wondered why your body just acts, sometimes before your brain even gets the memo? Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're going to break down the incredible science of your reflexes, that automatic pilot that's always running in the background. I mean, we've all been there, right? A car backfires, a dish shatters, and you jump out of your skin. It's that heart in your throat moment that happens before you can even process what the sound was. And that universal feeling, it's the perfect doorway into this hidden system that quietly runs our lives. So, in the world of science, there's a name for this: respondent behavior. Now, what does that really mean? Well, the two words you've got to remember are automatic and involuntary. This isn't about you making a choice, not at all. It's a direct, physical reaction that gets pulled out of you by something in your environment. Okay, so here's our game plan for breaking this all down. First, we'll look at the basics of your automatic pilot. Then we'll ask a big question: are we born with these things, or do we learn them? After that, we'll get into the 3 simple rules all reflexes follow, how they can actually change over time, and finally, we'll wrap up with why this is so important for everything from our survival to our emotions. All right, let's dive right into section 1, your automatic pilot. We're going to start with the absolute bedrock, the fundamental link that is the building block of every single reflex you have. Now, what's really interesting here is the specific language that scientists use. You've got the stimulus. That's just any event out there in the world. Then you've got the response. That's your body's automatic reaction. But here's the key word: elicit. We don't just say a stimulus causes a response, we say it elicits it. It's a stronger word, you know? It implies this direct, forceful pull, like the stimulus is yanking the response right out of you. And this example makes it crystal clear. Imagine you walk from a dark room out into the bright sunshine. What happens instantly? That bright light, the stimulus, elicits a response. Your pupils shrink down to a pinpoint. You don't think about it, you don't decide to do it. It just happens. That right there is a pure reflex in action. Okay, so moving on to our second section. This brings up a really big question. Are all of these automatic reactions just hardwired into our DNA from birth? Or can we actually learn new ones as we go through life? Well, it turns out there are 2 types. Over on the left, we've got innate reflexes. Think of these as your body's factory settings. They're biologically wired in from day one. Blinking when something flies at your eye, a baby knowing how to suckle, these things are crucial for survival, and they require absolutely zero learning. But over on the right, things get really interesting. We have learned reflexes, which are reactions we actually pick up through our experiences. So how in the world do we learn a reflex? Well, you've probably heard of the classic example, Pavlov and his dogs. It starts with a totally natural, innate reflex, right? Food makes a dog drool. Simple. Then you bring in something completely neutral, like ringing a bell. At first, the bell means nothing to the dog. But then you start ringing that bell right before you present the food. You pair them together again and again and again. And after a while, something incredible happens. The dog starts drooling at just the sound of the bell. That totally neutral sound has become a learned trigger, a learned stimulus for a very real physical response. Now, you might think these automatic reactions are kind of chaotic and unpredictable, but they're not. They actually follow 3 very clear, predictable scientific laws. Okay, rule number 1 is the law of threshold. The best way to think about this is like a light switch. For a reflex to happen, the stimulus has to be strong enough to actually flip that switch. You know, a tiny microscopic speck of dust near your eye probably won't make you blink, but a bigger piece of fuzz will. It has to cross a certain minimum intensity, a threshold, for the response to even kick in. Next up, rule number 2, the law of intensity. This one is super straightforward. Once you've crossed that initial threshold, the strength of the stimulus really matters. Basically, a stronger stimulus is going to elicit a bigger, more powerful response. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Let's go back to your pupils. In a dimly lit room, a pretty weak stimulus, your pupils might contract just a tiny bit. But you walk outside and stare at a bright light, a really strong stimulus, and bam, you get a much larger, much more dramatic contraction. More stimulus equals more response. Simple as that. And our third and final rule is the law of latency. Latency might sound like a fancy science word, but all it means is the delay. You know, the time between when the stimulus happens and when your response actually starts. And this law says that the stronger the stimulus is, the shorter that delay will be. You react way faster to more intense things. This quote just nails it. I mean, think about it. If you accidentally touch a red-hot stove, your hand pulls back instantly. There's almost zero latency. It's immediate. But what if you touch a surface that's just a little too warm? You might leave your hand there for a second before your brain even registers it and you pull away. The latency is longer because the stimulus is weaker. So we know we can learn new reflexes, but what about the ones we already have? Are they just set in stone forever? Not at all. Let's dig into how our bodies learn to either tune in or tune out to the world around us. So our reflexes can actually evolve in two completely opposite directions. On the one hand, you have habituation. This is when your response gets weaker and weaker because you're exposed to the same stimulus over and over. It's the science behind getting used to it. But on the other hand, you have sensitization, which is the polar opposite. This happens when, after a really intense event, your response to similar things actually gets stronger. You become more sensitive. Here is a perfect example of habituation that I'm sure some of you have lived through. You move into a new place, right near some train tracks. The first few nights, that train whistle is so loud it makes you jump out of your skin every single time. But after a month of hearing it over and over and again, your response just fades. You've habituated. You barely even notice it anymore. Now let's flip that coin and look at sensitization. Imagine a really traumatic event, like a robbery, and at the exact same moment, a car backfires really loudly. That intense, scary pairing can make a person's system incredibly sensitive. So later on, even a much quieter, harmless sound, like someone dropping a book in a library, can trigger a massive startle response. Their whole system is on high alert, sensitized to that kind of stimulus. Okay, so we've covered the mechanics, we've learned the rules, we know how they can change. But what's the big picture here? Why does any of this really matter? Well, it's because these incredibly simple principles are actually the foundation for some of our most complex human experiences. Seriously, understanding this stuff is huge. It helps explain those gut-level emotional reactions we have. It shows us how fears and phobias can develop through these learned associations. It even gives us a window into many anxiety responses. It's the very foundation of many types of therapy. And at its core, it explains the beautiful, constant dance of how we adapt to the world every single day. So the next time you flinch at a noise, or your heart starts pounding, or your mouth waters when you smell your favorite food, just take a second. Pause. Because now you know the rules. You can see the stimulus, you can understand the response, and you can appreciate that amazing automatic pilot that's working 24/7 to help you navigate the world. So, what will you notice first?